NBA free agency certainly has had its share of surprises, highlighted by Kevin Durant's stunning decision to join the Golden State Warriors. Jared Dubin is here to lend his insight and really kind of make some sense of it all. Jared writes for, among others, CBSSports.com and ViceSports.com. Jared, number one, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start kind of with a local flavor. The Knicks trade for Derrick Rose prior to the start of free agency, and then they acquired Joakim Noah, Courtney Lee, and also Brandon Jennings. Let's go with the Rose trade first. In my eyes, that was a pretty low-risk trade. Do you agree about that whole acquisition?
It's low risk. It's not necessarily all that high reward, though, because the best-case scenario is probably that Rose plays well, the Knicks go back to the playoffs, and then they have to make a decision next summer whether they want to pay a 28-year-old point guard with a long history of knee injuries a whole lot of money, because he's a free agent next summer. So even if he does get back to the level that they think he might get to, they got to take a risk on him again next summer. So the reward may not be great, even though they didn't take that much of a risk. So
they kind of painted themselves into a corner. But yet again, if they do get if Derrick Rose plays 70 games, that's a win, right?
Oh, definitely. If he can play 70 games. But
right.
You know, last year he played 66. In the 2 years before that, he played 61 combined. It's not necessarily a sure bet that he'll even be able to play that many.
Right, and Noah, like Rose, has certainly had his share of injuries. What do you think Knicks fans' reasonable expectation should be for Joakim Noah?
The reasonable expectation would be for him to play really good defense. Even while he was injured last year, he still played good defense, and the Bulls' defense collapsed when he got hurt and went out for the season. You know, his injury last year, shoulder injury, sort of a fluke. He had some injury troubles the couple years before that. He's obviously a very good passer as well, and that makes him a good fit next to Kristaps Porzingis, because he's not looking to shoot and use all the possessions, and you want Kristaps to be the primary offensive option as the big man.
Noah is somewhat of an outspoken dude, too, and that's one of the things I like about him. Could he become the leader in the locker room, given the fact that Carmelo Anthony isn't necessarily a verbal guy in regards to that?
I think that that's definitely an expectation. I think that's a reason they wanted a guy like that. You know, you saw the way they built the team a few years ago when they brought in a lot of, you know, veteran leadership type of guys, and that was the season they won 54 games, had their best season. You know, it wasn't necessarily because they were leaders, they also happened to play well, but that's what you want in a guy that's sort of an older presence in the locker room, especially because, like you said, Carmelo is more of a lead by example type rather than a lead by verbal type.
So Noah and Rose, obviously the high-profile acquisitions. What is a Courtney Lee and Brandon Jennings? What do they bring to the table?
Courtney Lee, I think, was the best value signing that they made, because he's exactly the kind of guy you want next to Derrick Rose and Carmelo Anthony on the perimeter, because he doesn't use a lot of possessions, but he uses them very efficiently. He's a very good shooter from the outside, moves around the court very well, and can defend 2 or even 3 positions depending on who the opposing backcourt is very well. He's a good defender, and that's something you need when the 2 high-profile guys on the perimeter are, you know, on their best days, average defenders.
Overall, as you look at the Knicks' off-season work, how much do you think this team and this organization improved itself?
I think that sort of depends on how...
Is that the caveat, the injury caveat?
It depends on if they have to move their trainer's room into the hospital for special surgery or not.
Wow. Like, you've used that before, haven't you? I like that. I like that. No, it's good material, though, Jared. Yeah.
I put it on my Twitter account, which, you know, I'll crib from myself here.
Right.
But, you know, they're making a very big bet on guys that have a lot of talent, but also have a large injury history. And it's not just Rose and Noah, it's Jennings too. You know, he's coming off an Achilles tear. He didn't play for a lot of the season last year. That's an injury not a lot of guys have come back from and been themselves again. And if everybody can stay healthy and play well like they had when they were previously at their, you know, healthy selves, then yeah, the Knicks will be a lot better. But it could very easily all blow up in their faces if those guys don't stay on the court.
All right, let's switch to the Nets now, and Brooklyn really trying to kind of rebuild and remain competitive. Jeremy Lin signs a 3-year, $36 million deal. Lin, a big part of the Hornets' success last season. I think a lot of people don't realize that or don't remember that. This seems to me on the surface to be a really solid signing, and I think a tremendous PR move. How do you view this?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of the reason that he came back to New York, obviously going to Brooklyn now instead of the Knicks, is because of Kenny Atkinson, who was an assistant coach with the Knicks when he was there, played a big role in his development. He played a big role in development in Atlanta. Guys like DeMauri Carroll and Kent Bazemore got a lot better under his tutelage. And Lin obviously wanted to be back in that ecosystem. And, you know, being back in New York couldn't have hurt. But I think a lot of it was reuniting with his old coach and someone who runs an offense, at least if they play the way Atlanta did, that suits Lynn very well. Get him in pick and rolls and get him moving toward the basket.
We'll talk more about Kenny Atkinson in just a second. Coney Island native and Seton Hall product Isaiah Whitehead just may get some quality minutes for the Nets kind of in his backyard here. How do you see him fitting in with the Brooklyn roster?
I think he could be sort of a backup hybrid combo guard type. You know, it's interesting because the Nets not only Lynn, but they also went after Miami's restricted free agent Tyler Johnson in free agency. The Heat wound up matching that deal, and if they had not matched, then that might have cut into some of Whitehead's opportunities. But now that they didn't get Johnson, there might be a little bit more opportunity there. And, you know, a lot like Lynn, I think he would be a good fit if Atkinson's running that Hawk style of offense, because he can make plays off the dribble and he can shoot off the dribble too, which is a very good fit for what they did there.
One final thought on the local angle. Tell us something about new head coach Kenny Atkinson that our fans can use, something they can remember about him.
He's going to be there for the long haul. You know, you can tell from what the Nets did this summer that they're planning this thing in the long term, and because he's such a good developmental coach, the guys that they bring in, they should get better while they're there playing for him.
All right, certainly going to be interesting to see how both the Knicks and the Nets fare after their offseason moves. Now, we're going to take a brief timeout. When we come back, Jared and I will go around the NBA. I still can't believe Dwayne Wade left Miami. Can you?
No.
No, I'm still not sure it happened. We'll discuss Wade's departure and more right after this. Welcome back, everybody. We're discussing the fallout from NBA free agency with NBA writer Jared Dubin. And Jared, we've heard so many things following the Kevin Durant decision to join the Warriors, the Steve Nash phone call, the Jerry West phone call. In your mind, what did it come down to? Is it simply this guy wants to win a championship much sooner than later?
Yeah, I think that's a very big part of it. And it seems like he just wants to have a lot of fun playing with guys that are really good at basketball. You know, he had Russell Westbrook on his team and Serge Ibaka on his team. And, you know, the Thunder, as much talent as they had, they didn't play a necessarily fun style of basketball. A lot of it was, you know, take turns isolating Durant and Westbrook. Now he's going to play on a team that shares the ball all the time, whips the ball all over the court, gets up and down the floor on offense, switches on defense. They're all over the place. It just seems like it would be a whole lot of fun to be part of that.
And he said after meeting with the Warriors, he said it was organic. The guys were humble. He just liked the vibe around Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Steve Kerr, Draymond Green, and all the guys who came to the meeting, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, and look, if you've watched that team over the last couple of years, that makes a lot of sense. You know, you watch them on the floor, they're having a ton of fun, and it seems like it would be something you'd want to be a part of if you're that good of a player. Other
NBA owners, possibly Adam Silver, the commissioner, not crazy about this move.
Yeah.
Do you think super teams are bad for the NBA?
I don't think so. You know, the teams... There have been super teams for a long time. You know, were the 80s Celtics and Lakers bad for the NBA? Were the 60s Celtics bad for the NBA? Ratings exploded when the Bulls were winning 6 out of 8 championships in the 90s. And even with these super teams over the last 5 or 6 years, you know, they've lost 3 of the last 6 finals. So it's not like it's taking, you know, a ton of unpredictability out of the NBA ecosystem.
Right. Now, on the surface, it looks like we were joking before the break about Dwayne Wade. But on the surface, it looks like he left Miami mostly because of pride, not being offered the amount of money that he felt he deserved given what he has to the franchise, has taken pay cuts in the past to add, you know, roster pieces around him. Is it much more complicated than that?
Probably. You know, him and Pat Riley have a relationship that goes back 13 years now. You know, it's never just one thing that leads to a breakup. When there's a relationship that's that long, there's a bunch of little things that accumulate, and then there's one thing that sort of is the straw that broke the camel's back. And it seems like that was what, you know, the money and the respect was this summer.
All right, you can check out Jared's work at CBSSports.com and ViceSports.com. Jared, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.